And welcome to this edition of Valley Talk on KGAL. I'm Dave Adams. Do want to remind you once again that Quiznos Taste on Us, we are taking submissions for that, and every day that we do the show, we give away a $10 gift certificate for Quiznos in Albany. How you enter for that is you simply send me an email at dave@kgal.com or call the station at 926-KGAL or 451-KGAL. If you send an email, put Quiznos Taste on Us on the subject line. At the end of the show today, we're going to draw somebody's name out of the hat, and that lucky person will get a $10 gift certificate, good only at the Albany Quiznos location. It's conveniently located right next to Novak's Restaurant and next to the former G.I. Joe Sporting Goods location. Can't miss it there in the parking lot. Thanks to Dale and the crew for being a part of the Valley Talk family here on KGAL. Make sure you get your entries in before the end of the show today, and who knows, maybe we'll draw your name out there, and you can take a buddy to lunch on us, because the taste is on us here at KGAL's Valley Talk and Quiznos. On this portion of the show today, we are privileged to have Rick Lamb of The Horse Show, and of course you can hear that program here on KGAL Radio. Rick, looking forward to talking to you on Valley Talk today.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure hearing your voice. You're a real pro, man.
Well, so are you. Rather enjoyed The Horse Show. Now, you're going to be a presenter, or at least an MC, during the All Breed Challenge. Is that correct, at the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo?
That is right. I've been going there for years and years, and I do a number of different things. I do educational talks. I do interviews for my radio show. And this year, what I always tell them is, use me, abuse me, just put me to work when I'm there. And so this year they're really taking advantage of that. I'm doing a seminar, kind of a roundtable type discussion, educational discussion, and then emceeing and hosting this entire All Breed Challenge, which really runs 4 consecutive days at the Expo.
Now let's talk about the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo 2013. You've been in it for several years. It's celebrate. The thing that stuck out to me on this one is the theme is celebrate the spirit of the horse. Has kind of a spiritual connotation to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and that's kind of that magical quality that I think keeps all of us that are involved with horses sticking with it and trying to do better for them and for ourselves, because horses are, and I've written about this extensively, they're kind of a vehicle for human self-actualization, if you want to get metaphysical about it, but they kind of inspire us to do better. So they have a spiritual aspect to them, and I think that's one thing that really draws people in and keeps them in is not only is it fun, it's just plain fun messing with horses. There's something deeper going on there, and I think anybody who has a horse or rides a horse pretty quickly starts, tuning into that, and I think that's what they're referring to.
Let's talk about the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo and compare it to other shows. How does this compare with other shows around the country, around the Northwest?
Well, of course, I love them all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being very politically correct there. But in all honesty, I've been coming to this show for a long time, and the people that put it on are just really quality people. They know how to do an event like this, and that's a huge deal. Because some of the horse expos I go to, bless their heart, they're just starting out, and they kind of stumble around and make some mistakes, and it's a little difficult for everybody. But this is an event that's been going on for quite a few years. The people running it it's called Equine Promotions. They have a tremendous amount of experience. The Linn County Fairgrounds is a beautiful facility, very clean, easy access. The whole event is very family-friendly, so you can bring your kids, and you will see a lot of families there. And you just see people having a good time. So, I mean, the typical allure, if you will, for an event like this is kind of threefold. One is it's educational. Second is it's entertaining, and third is it's a shopping opportunity. So it really, you really have to be sure you attract some good vendors to fulfill that part of this. And the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo, in my book, has always had superb vendors, superb educational content. And this year in particular, boy, they're going all out to add that entertainment value as well.
Now, the entertainment value, is that principally on the Thursday starting at 5 p.m., the night before the big show starts?
Well, that what you're alluding to is the All Breed Challenge, which is a new deal that they're doing this year. And it's kind of in response, I think, to the growing interest in having fun competitions that people from all levels and all walks of life that are interested in horses can compete in. All breed is just exactly what that says. Any breed, Western, English type riding discipline, literally any breed, quarter horse, Arabian, whatever it may be. They're also allowing mules in, so it's kind of an all species event in that respect. There are obstacles there. It's a timed event. You're going to be required to show what you can do in a number of different kinds of maneuvers that have been drawn from the different riding disciplines. You'll be asked to do things that are reminiscent of dressage moves or reining moves or trail moves, that kind of thing. And as this thing progresses towards the finals on Sunday, there are more and more options that the participants have, so that they can kind of use their own strategies. And in other words, they will be able to choose some of these obstacles that maybe have a little bit more point value to try, skip other ones, kind of put together their own program. And then at the end, and this is kind of my personal favorite thing, is they have this freestyle aspect of the competition. And what that means is you don't have to do the maneuver or the obstacle or whatever that they've set up for you. You can do anything you want to show off you and your horse.
Wow.
And this is where you start seeing some really creative stuff. And lots of times there's music involved, there's costumes involved, and that is often the icing on the cake. So while the points that are allocated for doing the maneuvers and the timing and all of that enters into it, then you've got this sort of intangible, subjective aspect of it, which is in this freestyle part.
Now, the March 21st, where I was alluding to, 5 p.m., there's going to be a number of events, entertainment-type events. They bill it as an enchanting evening of equine entertainment. Elegant dancing horses, Black Pearl, Frisian dance troops, sliding reiners, soccer playing on horseback, which is something I've never seen, with a giant soccer ball.
Yeah.
Trick riding, rock and roll cowgirls drill team, and just a lot of fun of that evening before the show gets underway. Now, the show is March 21st, 5 p.m. that night, and then the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, starting at 10 a.m. on Friday, the 22nd, and then 9 a.m. on the Saturday and Sunday. Incidentally, KGAL's Valley Talk show is going to be broadcasting live there from 11 to noon on Friday, March 22nd. So, Rick, if you're available, we'd love to have you stop by the KGAL booth and talk to us for a bit.
Absolutely. I'll be looking for you.
So let's talk about the horse show. How long have you been doing the horse show?
Oh, gosh. We started April 19th of 1997. And this will tell you how little I knew about what I was doing back then. I had no idea that it was almost unheard of to start a nationally syndicated program from day one. Usually, what happens with syndicated programs, they start in a local market, they kind of build up a local following, and then they start expanding a little bit at a time. Well, I didn't realize that you didn't really go out and just grab a bunch of stations all over the country and start doing shows, but that's exactly what we did. In our first broadcast, we were on, I believe it was 9 stations in 8 states, literally from coast to coast. And, very early on, I don't remember the exact year, but KGAL came on board with us very early, and both with our long-form program, our interview-based program, and with our Horse Show Minutes. So you guys have been with us almost since the very beginning.
It was kind of exciting to hear what you've done. Nobody kind of tainted you and stopped you from doing it by saying, well, Rick, you just can't do that. I didn't know any better. I just did it. And I think a lot of us could learn something from that kind of initiative.
Well, that's kind of the story of my life, Dave. Most of the things that I've done, and I've been kind of an entrepreneur since I was a kid, and most of the things that I've done, if I had known how difficult it was going to be up front, I probably would have been discouraged. But, I kind of, that old saying, ignorance is bliss, I just kind of dived into it with all the enthusiasm of the ignorant, and I had some skills. When I started on radio, even though I hadn't done live radio or even pre-recorded voice work for that matter, I had been operating a recording studio for, by that time about 20 years. And I was really good with recording and editing audio, and I'd worked with a lot of announcers, a lot of radio people, and I had kind of developed the confidence that if I could do this in the studio and I could record my parts and re-record them and edit them as needed to get it to where it sounded pretty good, I could do it. So my show has always been a pre-recorded show. It's never been live. I love live stuff now that I've got a little bit more confidence in it. and I jump at chances to do live things on TV and radio. But my forte has always been, being in the studio and just kind of making all the pieces come together. And that's how we've done the radio shows right from the very beginning. And it really worked for us because I think it allowed me to get these great interviews and not worry about, hitting the marker on times or whatever as you would in a live show.
Oh, yeah.
Just let it go, and then I could get in there and edit it to fit the sections of our show. And boy, that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, Dave, of all the stuff that I've done, is what we have created on radio and just the body of work of these interviews. And some of those great horsemen that I interviewed are no longer with us. So,
that's too bad.
There's something about that. Yeah.
Now, one of the nice things I do like about your show is it's got something for the experienced horse owner and horse rider, as well as somebody like a novice like me, where I know the front side of the horse and the back side of the horse. Back side of the horse has the tail. Front side of the horse has the rope you hang on to. You call it the reins. Yeah. And but the thing I like about your show, it's entertaining and informative for a novice, and also for the experienced rider. So how do you determine, and you've had some pretty interesting topics on there, how do you determine show topics?
Well, when I first started, I was afraid of two things. Number one, that I would lose interest in this, and number two, that I'd run out of things to talk about, that there just wouldn't be subject matter out there. And I couldn't have been more wrong on either case. And the topics kind of land in my lap usually. It could be somebody I run into at a horse expo, like I'll really have my antenna out when I'm at the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo for great topics, people doing interesting things. But also people now, and I encourage this, they come to me with ideas. And I have a little protocol that I require them to go through, so I'm just not inundated with ideas that really aren't going to work or that don't fit what the format of our show is. So I've got a little thing on my website people can download that's the guidelines for suggesting radio or TV interviews. And I always require, Dave, that the person that's going to be interviewed be the one that pitches me on the idea. Because what I've found that people that are doing really great and interesting things, some of them don't want to be on radio. Some of them want to be kind of just left alone to do their thing. And it took me a while to realize that, but I'm absolutely committed to not, invading the privacy of people like that. So, for somebody who wants to be on my radio show, all I have to do is email me, pitch me the idea, and if it kind of fits our format, if it piques my interest, which is the number one requirement, if I'm interested in it, then chances are pretty good we'll put it on the radio, because I found that my audience is, by and large, interested in the same things I am.
Interesting. And you also have to avoid those yes and no answers and talking to people that may be doing some very interesting things, but simply don't interview well.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been there before, haven't you?
But here I want to tell you, you probably already know this, a thing I just discovered on my own is that when you have somebody who has a very low energy level and isn't very talkative, what I've found is I can kind of drop rather than trying to overwhelm them by being full of energy, I kind of drop my energy level to where they're at and kind of figuratively lock on to them and kind of draw them out. And then I found that you can kind of raise the overall level of the energy level and the talkativeness, the dialogue that goes on by doing that. And, the same thing's true if you get somebody that's just running off at the mouth continually. You almost have to kind of match their energy and then pull the whole thing back down a little bit.
Meet them where they're at and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking to Rick Lamb from The Horse Show, and we'll have more with him on Valley Talk here on KGAL in just a moment. Thank you for joining us on Valley Talk as we talk to Rick Lamb of The Horse Show. RFD TV's Horse Show Live. How did that start? The radio program started, and then you went into the TV show, didn't you?
Right.
How did that start?
The live part of that was just, we did a series of live broadcasts, part of Equine Live, which is a separate thing on RFD TV. So a lot of people saw me do live TV in that context. The show that I do every week is just called The Horse Show with Rick Lamb, and it's the TV version of our radio show. We started that in 2006, and basically I followed the same format that I've had on radio all this time because I felt, why, if something's not broken, why fix it? Obviously there's a difference here because we need visual content in addition to interviews.
Yeah.
And some topics are logistically very difficult to do on television. Although I tell you, we've traveled to other countries. We've done shows from Iceland and Brazil, and we go to Hawaii every year. We usually try and shoot something there. So almost everywhere we go, we're packing our cameras with us, and it's just my wife and me. She runs the camera, and I stand in front of it and run off my mouth. And then we get back into that comfort zone of the studio, and we start cutting things together and trying to make something out of it. And it's been a format that's worked for us, and people tend to like it.
Talking to Rick Lamb with the Horse Show, and of course you can hear that program here on KGAL. And looking forward to the next show. Rick, who has been either the most interesting topic or the most interesting guest you've had on the show?
Oh, I'm going to say something that might surprise you, because the two that stick out in my memory really didn't have a whole lot to do with horses. And I'll back up and tell you that I had a recording studio in Phoenix for 30-some years. It was called Lamb Chop Studios. And this was where people came in and recorded commercials all day long. And we got to know Hugh Downs, the great TV broadcaster from 2020. And he actually wrote the foreword to my first book because he was very good friends with my co-author, Dr. Robert Miller. And Hugh Downs and I got to be friends, and one day I said to him, would you be interested in just sitting and talking to me about your life? And he did, and he did. And the connection to horses was, well, Hugh Downs is just a real Renaissance man. He's interested in everything, and he's good at so many different things, very diverse talent. And horses are one of the things that's always fascinated him. So that was my in, and I said, well, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I just want to talk about your life too. And so that was one of my favorite. And then Leslie Nielsen, the great comic actor, same thing. He'd been coming into my studio for years doing recordings, and one day I just said, hey, would you like to sit and talk about your life? And he actually had a little bit stronger connection to horses because one of his first big roles was playing Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, on a Disney series in the 60s. And it was a Revolutionary War hero who rode a horse in every single episode. So I knew he had some stories about that. So those are my two favorite interviews just because the people were so interesting. And then I've done a bunch of others that were related more to horses, but I think those are the two that stick out in my mind.
He didn't say, don't call me Shirley, did he?
I missed my opportunity. I missed my opportunity. I so, after the fact, wish I'd said, surely you can't be serious, and then he would have said,
don't call me
I
Shirley.
am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Classic from the Airplane show, or Airplane movie with Leslie Nielsen.
Oh, God.
Interesting stories there. What is the biggest mistake horse owners make?
Oh, I got this one for you. This one I've thought about. And I'm going to use a big word, anthropomorphizing. Now, what that means for anybody who doesn't have a dictionary handy is it means that people assign human-like qualities or characteristics or thought processes or values to something that isn't human. And in this case, it's horses. And Dave, the thing is about horses that you got to understand right from the get-go is they are dramatically different from human beings. They are as opposite in the world psychologically and physiologically in many ways from humans as you could be, of any mammal that's out there. And so when people start projecting their own needs and wants and values and so forth onto horses, they get into trouble real fast. And that happens not only in the realm of behavior. Horses start acting out, and people don't expect it. They don't understand it. And also just from the standpoint of how you care for a horse, because a horse is very, very comfortable with a lifestyle that we can't even imagine. And so if you don't understand what their true nature is, both behaviorally and kind of physiologically, and in terms of the herds that they live in, then you have no chance of having them be comfortable and relaxed and calm around you, and that's when they start acting out, behaviorally, and that's when people get hurt. So, long answer to to a short question, but I would say just not understanding the real nature of horses.
Well, I'm impressed you can say the word. What is that word again?
Anthropomorphizing or anthropomorphization. And I'll give you, there's other examples
Sure.
of it, and I always bring up, there are things like people call their car a name,
Right.
like, or Davy Crockett had his musket, which he called Old Betsy, and B.B. King plays a guitar he calls Lucille, and those are all sort of anthropomorphic names for inanimate objects in this case, rather than another species of living creature. But and it's generally pretty harmless. But with horses, that's a specific case where you gotta look at them for what they are, and work within that framework instead of projecting,
And it's a safety issue for the rider and the horse, because a horse is a big animal. You can get hurt, and they can get hurt.
Absolutely, and they don't mean necessarily to hurt you, but they don't think in terms of, well, gee, this is my friend, I'm not going to, step on your foot, or I'm not going to run over you, or whatever. When they go into flight mode, when they go into a survival mentality, they're not thinking anymore about much of anything. Least of all would be this quote-unquote relationship with you. That's just not how they're programmed. And so people often, say, well, because I love my horse so much, and my horse seems relaxed and does kind of cute horsey things around me, well, my horse must love me the same way and would never hurt me. That is, when I hear that, my radar go off. I say, whoa, wait a second. If that horse gets spooked and you're in the way, you are going to get hurt. And that has nothing to do with how the horse feels about you. It's his survival mechanism. Now, as far as the horse getting hurt, horses, as big and strong as they are incredibly delicate in certain parts of their bodies. Now, some of it is prone to physical injury, but more often it has to do with metabolic upset that comes from not feeding them correctly. So, they can be pretty delicate. And colic, which is really just a belly pain or an upset in the digestive tract of the horse, is still the number one killer of horses.
Interesting. So what are you going to be doing at the Horse Show and Expo? I keep calling it Horse Show. It's the Horse Fair and Expo 2013, March 21st through the 24th. You're going to be helping MC the Albury Challenge. But if people want to talk to you, meet you, maybe give you a story or two, how do they find you?
Well, I'll have a booth there, and then I'll also be doing several talks. The first one, which is going to be on Friday at noon, is called Best Friends Forever, 7 Strategies for Maintaining Harmony with Your Horse. Then at 4 o'clock on Friday, I'm doing Decoding Horse Behavior, how to interpret what your horse does. On Saturday at 10:30, my talk is the 6 tricks great horsemen use every day, horse handling techniques that always help. And at 1:30, I'm doing Finding Flicka, how to choose a horse that's right for you. That's one of my perennial favorites. And then on Sunday, I'm actually hosting a forum discussion with a bunch of horse professionals called The Role of the Professionals in Your Horse's Circle of Influence. So I'll kind of be a moderator and facilitator on that forum discussion.
Interesting. Now, Rick Lamb, of course, will be at the Northwest Horse Fair and Expo. KGAL's Valley Talk will be live there Friday, 11 a.m. to noon. That's Friday, March 22nd. Of course, the show starts that day at 10 a.m., so stop by the KGAL booth and visit with us. And, of course, visit with Rick, and especially if you got an interesting story to tell. Rick loves stories.
I do love stories.
And thank you for being with us on Valley Talk today. Look forward to having you as a guest here in the Albany area in the future and coming up here this month. And then look forward to having you on the show here on Valley Talk again in the future.
All right, Dave. Thanks so much.
Okay. This is KGAL's Valley Talk, and be right back. And on this edition of Valley Talk, we have the distinct privilege to talk to Jack Hinkle, who lives in the Independence, Oregon area, and is a Red Cross supervisor of life safety and asset protection. And he has worked for Red Cross for several years. One of the things he has done most recently is he was involved in Hurricane Sandy relief efforts. Hurricane Sandy, of course, October 12th, hitting the New Jersey area, and then wrecking a path of destruction about 900 miles wide north and westward from New Jersey. Jack Hinkle, thank you for talking to us on Valley Talk today.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to your audience.
How long have you been with the Red Cross?
Since February of 1991.
And how many call-outs or disasters have you been on?
27.
Do you typically go from the Independence area to places all over the world or the continental United States?
Continental United States.
And what areas have you gone to?
Oh, I've been to Kansas, I've been to Florida, I've been to Washington, the state of, I've been to Louisiana, I've been to Tennessee, I've been to Alabama, and probably many more places.
What is the biggest disaster you've been involved with?
Katrina and this one, Sandy.
So Sandy is comparative to Katrina in the amount of destruction?
Yes. It can go side by side with it, and some of the stuff that I saw was even bigger, but I don't know the exact figures.
Now, when we were first hearing about Hurricane Sandy coming onshore, we were hearing the weather forecasters saying it was the perfect storm and that it was going to be very, very significant. And we saw newsreels, news pictures of windows being boarded up and so on and so forth. It wrecked a lot of destruction, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And some of the areas that I saw were just a crying shame. I haven't seen destruction like that since I saw Katrina or since having been in the military.
But there wasn't as much of a loss of life in Sandy as there was in Katrina, was there?
No, they had some chances to get up and get out. The biggest, of course, was the floods, especially in the New Jersey shore and the shores around New York, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Coney Island. They really got hit hard.
Describe for me, if you would, some of what you saw there. I know you saw a lot and saw a lot of destruction, but if you could give me kind of a wide brush stroke of what you witnessed.
Hundreds of homes just swept off of their foundations by the surging waters, waters that rose 6 to 8 feet, just destroyed a huge number of homes. And there was one area, it was called Breezy Point, which is Brooklyn, and they had some 100 homes or so that burned down because the fire department could not get to the homes because of the high water.
What caused the fires?
I don't know what originally started. I'm going to imagine broken gas lines, wires down. I never went into that with the fire department.
So what is your job? Your job is a supervisor in life safety and asset protection. What is that?
My number one job is that as shelters open, both for the clients and for Red Cross personnel staying overnight, kitchens that are being set up to feed our clients, bulk distribution sites, anything where Red Cross personnel are stationed or live. It's my position to go around and inspect these places to make sure that they are living in a safe place.
Is that challenging to do that job when you have a disaster, that you're trying to come in and get control of a disaster and help people, and there's just so much chaos and there's just so much unorganization, I would think?
Well, it's organized unorganization, but everybody knows their job. And we've all been out on these things so many times that we just kind of fall into a way of doing things. For instance, we had 149 client shelters opened. Well, it was our job to go around and make sure that the clients that stayed there were living in a safe place and were being treated properly.
What did you do before you worked for the Red Cross?
I spent about 35 years in law enforcement, both in California, and I do a little bit up here in Oregon for Independence Police Department. I do some background investigations for potential police officers as needed. And I've been doing that now for about 6 years, and I was a travel agent for 10 years.
Compare that with your Red Cross. Do you like the Red Cross work? You obviously do. You've been doing it for quite a while.
I love it.
What do you love about it?
I love going out and attempting to do what I can to assist those folks that have been hit hard by the circumstances. And also on the lighter side, you get to see people that you've worked with over the last 15 or 20 years. Red Cross is a huge family. And for instance, I ran into one lady that I last seen her in 2005 in Florida. And it's just like seeing a relative. And you go up and you talk over the things that happened there, and you talk over what you're doing for them here. And it's just family oriented.
What is the biggest challenge that you've got, I guess, in your particular asset protection, either asset protection or just coming in and providing assistance? When Red Cross comes in, a myriad of challenges they have to deal with. What seems to be the biggest one, if there is one?
Well, you're dealing with people that have been through a tragic situation, and you're dealing with different personalities. You're even dealing with personalities of those folks that you work with the Red Cross. And 99.999%, it works out really well. The folks that are our clients understand what you're trying to do for them. They're very receptive, and we just try to do the best we can with what we have.
Any problems with burnout with Red Cross volunteers?
Yeah, that is somewhat of a problem. I spent 57 days in New York. My initial assignment was 3 weeks, and I felt it at the end of the 3 weeks. I came home, and then I was home for a while, and I went back for 2 weeks more. And because there was a vacation already set up some months ago, I came home and did family vacation, and then went back again for another 3 weeks. And when I came home this time, I felt it more than others that I have been on, and it's taken a little while longer to get back to my normal self again. And I'm about 90% there. I'm ready to go back again.
What is it? Is it the emotional over just seeing so much human tragedy, and is it physical exertion? Is it a combination? What causes this burnout?
It's all of that, and yet some of the stuff that will alleviate some of the burnout is what you see from those around you, from your clients. I give you an example. My partner and I we're about 70 miles out of New York City, and we had to go up to northern New York to check out on something, and we wound up in a nor'easter. So we stayed at a Red Cross shelter, and there were about 400 clients in this shelter. It was a big high school, and there was one gentleman there who was 89 years old, and he had been in his home, and his home was destroyed by water. And the fire department was inside taking him out, water up to his chest, and as they were loading him on a stretcher to get him out, they passed his bedroom, and his wife had passed away some 2 years ago, and he asked the fireman to please take him into his bedroom. And the fireman said, "No, we've got to get you out of here. It's a dangerous situation." He says, "I beg of you, please take me into my bedroom." So they stopped there for a moment. They were very nice. They stopped. He was in his bedroom just but a few seconds, and loaded him up into their rescue vehicle, brought him to the shelter, got him cleaned up, got him some new clothes and whatnot. The next day, this gentleman, age 89, hunched over, was going around to different clients on their beds and giving them encouragement. And that gives us encouragement.
So what's going through your mind when you see this person that's being rescued and has lost everything and has had so much tragedy personally with his wife just dying, and now all of a sudden he's giving aid to others? What does that do to you?
It keeps us going, and you see it. You see it a lot. You see it when you see the when the lady with her baby comes up to your vehicle that is serving food, and she's got tears in her eyes but a smile on her face. It's just one of those things that just it's a medication. And also when we're off, we work anywhere from 12 to 14 hours a day, and we get together afterwards and we'll sit around and we'll chew the fat, and somebody will tell a joke and whatnot. We don't do that around the clients, but within ourselves, and we get some laughing in. And that's some of the best thing that happens to us, is when we can laugh together and then go back out the next day and have at it again.
Is it kind of an emotional roller coaster for Red Cross volunteers, where they go out and they just see so much and they get too much and they have to come back home and decompress and then get ready for the next one? You ever have a situation where you don't want to go out on a mission for a while?
No. I always want to go. The thoughts that I get, and I can remember coming back from a particular hurricane in Florida. I'd been there for 31 days. And I wanted to come home, and I wanted to come home real badly because I'd had it. But when we got on the airplane and we took off and we were flying out over the Atlantic Ocean, I wanted to get off the airplane and go back and start all over again.
We'll have more with Red Cross volunteer Jack Hinkle as KGAL's Valley Talk continues. I'm Dave Adams. This is KGAL's Valley Talk, as we talk to Jack Hinkle of the Independence, Oregon area, who is a volunteer with the Red Cross, who has spent some time helping victims of the Hurricane Sandy incident. We also talked to him about some of the other things he's witnessed during his years with the Red Cross. Jack, when you go into a disaster on behalf of the Red Cross and you're trying to help people, I can't even imagine the enormity of the disaster, and you must seem in our humanness so small when you look at just the vastness of the destruction that nature can cause. You were telling me just a moment ago about a tornado in Alabama.
Right. I was standing in the center of this town, and there were 3,000 people in it, and there was 100 people killed. And I was standing in the center of this community, and I did a complete 360-degree turn, and I saw one wall standing of the whole town. One wall was standing, and it was a church, or what was left of a church, and across the street was a big cement slab, and it was on Sunday morning, and there was this large group of people, and they were holding services on this big slab. And as we drove by, somebody had taken a spray can and written on the wall, "He lives." And it just feeling that I can't even describe to you at this time. It was just so awe-inspiring.
Almost beyond words, isn't it?
It was beyond words. I looked at my partner, and we just shook our heads, and we couldn't believe it.
What other issues, what other circumstances, instances come to mind? I'm sure there's lots of them, but can you share some with us?
I can think of, tragedy also breeds humor. I think of this gentleman, an older gentleman, who was living in a trailer, and he was up on the Skagit River with the Washington floods. And he needed to move, or have moved, his trailer up to a higher ground. And so there was a tow truck there to assist him in moving it. But it was a rather fragile trailer. It was a large one, but a rather fragile one. So they hooked up the trailer to the back of the tow truck and moved it very slowly up this hill up to the Hamilton Baptist Church. And as they got up to the top of the hill, they stopped. And as we went back in back of the trailer to look, there was this man's dog tied to the back of the trailer. Now, fortunately, we were only doing about 2 miles an hour, and the dog was just walking along behind the trailer. And for some reason or other, it struck us funny.
That is funny. So the dog just followed the truck?
Followed the trailer on up, just trotted along behind it. And the other lady that I ran into up there, she had this big smile on her face, same place. And I said, "What are you smiling at?" And she says, "I lost my home. I lost my clothes. I lost my car. I lost everything I had, and I'm divorcing my husband. I got it made." And I started to laugh. I couldn't help it.
So you've seen quite a few disasters, and you say that Hurricane Sandy and Katrina were two of the worst that you've been on. And we've obviously heard a lot about Katrina, and it was just a disaster on a scale that this nation has never experienced on its own soil. What was it about Hurricane Sandy that was comparable? Was it just the size of it?
Size, huge. Looking out an expanse of just nothing. Homes just stacked on each other. It made me cry.
Was it the wind or the tidal surge or both?
Yes, it wasn't so much the winds. The power of water is just unimaginable, where it can just pick up a 2-story house and move it next door.
What is the biggest thing that people at large can do for the Red Cross? Is it donate money?
Donations of the dollar is what we need most of all. Everything that we do for our clients is all from the donated dollar. We're not allowed to accept anything from government, any government. And besides the dollar, you'd be surprised what a lot of people, especially retirees, that just wonder what they want to do with their lives, to call their local Red Cross chapter and let them know that they would like to volunteer. They would come down to that particular chapter. There are classes to take. I've had over 40 classes over the 16 years in different things such as public relations, logistics, feeding, sheltering. There's just a ton of things that somebody can do. And it only takes a few to make a lot of people really happy.
Take Hurricane Sandy for an example. It happened October 12th. Red Cross responds. How long do you stay at a specific area? Or let's take Katrina, for example. Are you still down there in some ways providing aid?
I'm not sure about what Red Cross is doing in Katrina now. I could not speak to that. But when we go out on our calls in the continental United States, we're asked to please block out a time of 3 weeks.
We've been talking with Independence, Oregon resident Jack Hinkle about his experiences with the Red Cross. Our hats off and our heartfelt thank you to those who work with the Red Cross and other first responders and people who come to serve their fellow man in time of emergency. I'm Dave Adams, and this is Valley Talk. Thank you for listening.